If the creator had meant us to be born zombie takeout, we certainly would have been born zombie takeout. What's up? Welcome to episode 322 of Zombie Takeout.
Zombie Takeout.
The B-Movie and Cult Movie Podcast. I'm Uncle John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's movie, we've got some listeners submitted from Bodo via Twitter in reference to the trailer for this week's movie. He said, "Don't loathe me for this one." Bodo suggested this week's movie. And he also said, "This was 65 years ago and people still freak out today about sex changes. What the hell?" This movie was either way, way ahead of its time and really revolutionary, or we've really backslid. I have a feeling it's probably a combination of the two.
It's kind of weird. Well, I mean, it's why Ed Wood had the reputation of being the worst filmmaker of all time. And I think we talked about this in Plan 9 Out of Space, Outer Space, or Ed Wood. It was largely because the politics were just so... Yeah. It's so frightening, probably, that they had to put him down as much as possible.
Right. And the reputation just kind of stayed with him. He was really Lloyd Kaufman before Lloyd Kaufman.
Now, granted, with the quality of this film, you could have a case. However, we just saw one the week before. Even worse than that, dude. They don't even bother talking about whoever the fuck made that movie.
Of course. That was, again, made by a church group.
Reefer Madness.
Right. And we also have got some news. Not exactly movie-related, but I think we've talked about it a few times. The trailer for Star Trek Discovery was released today. Well, the full-length trailer, because we had a teaser a while back that just showed some CGI shots of a ship. No, we actually see the cast and some scenes, and the villains. The Klingons look interesting.
Yeah, it kind of breaks the story,
the timeline a little bit. Yeah, and the series is set 10 years before the original series. I don't know how they would have changed that much unless there was some genetic engineering involved. Because the difference between TOS and Next Gen makes sense. They could possibly have evolved a bit to look more like Worf.
Well, there's a story explained in Star Trek Enterprise.
Okay. About
a I forgot what the hell it was. It was some sort of mutation that would last for a generation. Some sort of virus that would affect a whole generation or two. So they actually explained in Enterprise, the Scott Bakula prequel, why they looked so different. Well, they looked like Klingons that we were familiar with at the beginning of the series, and then the virus happened. And then they looked like the Klingons
that we know from Next Gen
series.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And maybe they'll use that explanation for the. Okay, just if you haven't seen the trailer, do you remember that gold costume that CeeLo wore to an award show recently, where he looked kind of like a gold statue,
where he's doing like this weird character or whatever?
Turn that brown. Put the Klingon speed bumps on the forehead. That's what the new Klingons look like.
They looked more like some of the creatures, I think, from like Alien Nation or something. I don't know.
They just had kind of modeled bald heads. Other than that, they looked human.
That's true. Well, no, when they, I forgot what it was. If they touched water or something like that.
Okay, I don't remember that.
No, there was a drug. That's right. There was a drug that the aliens were using, and it was like a roid thing, and they just,
I don't remember Alien Nation that well.
I'm surprised it hasn't been rebooted yet.
That is a very good point. It was a pretty good show from what I recall. Better than the movie, if I remember correctly. I was going to say,
they took from the movie, and then, the show was actually a little bit better because in the movie, the aliens were too strong and smart.
Yeah.
And it was just, you wouldn't have any source of drama if you have an all-powerful being as your sidekick or partner.
Now, just taking it back to the Discovery trailer, overall, I think it looks pretty good. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be out this fall. I won't say they've settled, but that's what they're saying now.
Yeah, and of course, fall can mean anywhere to like December. So, I mean, it's kind of surprising. Well, I mean, they obviously they got wind of all the internet rumors about people saying that this thing was never going to happen,
Yeah.
and have
And made sure they
quickly
got a
put
trailer
things
out quick.
together.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
because
think it was released at some kind of upfronts or something.
yeah, I mean, it looks good. I just don't know if it looks like Star Trek.
It looks pretty good. I'm hopeful. I do have one reservation, and it's strictly a prejudicial visual thing. Not nothing to do with any of the cast. The bridge of the Discovery looks a lot like the Andromeda, if you remember that show.
Oh yeah, it does. You're right. I forgot all about Andromeda, but yeah,
I had pretty much forgotten about it
that.
until I saw the trailer for Discovery and realized that's fucking Andromeda. And I mean, I have a soft spot for Andromeda, but it wasn't a good show by any means.
It was something that if it was on, I would watch, but
it was fun.
Yeah,
but it's not
something I sought out.
Right, it's nowhere near what Star Trek should be.
I mean, it was back in the day where, like, if you're just hanging out in front of the TV was on, like, midnight, it would come on like, a Sunday night or something, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, nothing else on now.
In their defense, Andromeda was a Roddenberry show, if I recall correctly.
And it was a shoestring budget.
Yeah, that too. And
it was Kevin Sorbo.
Kevin Sorbo was the lead, yeah.
And that was it.
Anyway, kind of looking forward to Discovery. We'll see in the fall. And finally, on to this week's movie, which is from 1953, Glen or Glenda. This concludes our Moral Panic trilogy, and as I mentioned, was suggested by Bodo. Of course, that brings us to the impromptu plot summary. Sponsored by Angora. The touch, the feel of Angora, the fabric of our secret lives.
And also brought to you by Tor Johnson. When making a movie, you should lean on Tor Johnson as much as you lean on someone, say, like Bela Lugosi.
Maybe a little more.
Maybe. All right, so, well, sadly, we've returned to the lecture hall this week.
yeah. Well, this lecture hall was a bit more interesting, though.
It was, what was it, like a detective and a psychiatrist?
Oh, okay, that beginning. Together? I forgot about that part. I was thinking of Bela Lugosi.
Right. Well, yeah, there's narrative, a narrator within a narrator. I mean, it's really fucking confusing. Except Bela Lugosi is not a narrator, but he looks like he is. Well, he looks like he's sitting down, like, and now it's time we're going to tell you this story.
I had no idea what he was doing until you mentioned it. We were talking just before the show.
And it took me about half the film to figure this out myself, because it was like, wait, okay. But anyway, Bela Lugosi rants about some things. I mean, I'm not even going to say his character name or anything.
Right, yeah. We'll get to that later.
Rants about random things, pulling the string, and he really likes the sugar and spice rhyme.
And something about a green dragon, which really sounded like an opium reference.
That's what I thought too. I was like, is he ride the snake? And of course, wait a minute, wasn't he an opium addict?
He was? I actually didn't know that.
Isn't that the point of Ed Wood, where he was
right.
Where he was shooting up?
So maybe that's where it came from.
The estate hated that.
The green dragon that sits at your doorstep and does something, I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, he lived, I think, to Plan 9 from outer space, but I mean...
Okay, so yeah, this was before Plan 9, so...
Yeah.
He was almost dead. He was dying when they made Plan 9.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was quite a bit earlier, so he wasn't on death's door when he ranted like that.
6 years before Plan 9.
So I was thinking maybe he was on death's door with all of that ranting. Maybe that would excuse it a bit, but maybe Wood wrote all of that, which would be even more disturbing.
Yeah. So, he of course, I mean, this is a plot summary, and good luck with this, of course.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's get to the actual storyline.
I was going to say, so then we have the other set of narration, which is the detective and the psychiatrist talking about different stories about transvestites and two different cases.
One's transvestite, one's transgender.
Right. So then he goes into this, and it's about a man who had, of course, enjoys women's clothing, which, I mean, could be one of the funniest lines. Because they're so much more comfortable.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I've been married for a long time.
I have 3 older sisters.
Right. They're never comfortable in their clothes, man. It's uncomfortable as hell, from what I understand. You going, like, what the fuck, man?
Now, they could mean comfortable psychologically, not physically, but...
That's probably what he... Well, no, because he was specifically talking about leisure.
Oh, yeah, true. He did show him kind of...
relaxation when you're coming home.
Yeah, he did show the one guy kind of cuddled up on the couch.
Right. And comparing that the man has coarse clothes that are just, no good. I mean, it's funny because we were just joking, me and a coworker, like a few weeks back, about how if you have a tailor-made suit, I mean, it's like, it's like you're wearing nothing practically. It's that comfortable if you have a real good tailored suit. So maybe that's just what he needed. Who knows? But no, he's going on in this about how comfortable women's clothing is, and I'm like, wait, the heels, the fucking crazy ass straps,
especially in the 50s when they had like slips and probably corsets to some extent still.
Fuck, and torture devices that they put on in the interest of appealing. It's opposite. That is not going to sell me on this shit.
No.
So yes, for whatever reason, because obviously you can't just like it, you have to have some sort of psychological damage or whatever.
We're back to that old saw.
Which I didn't even think about until we talked about it beforehand. But I mean, yeah, obviously.
They make it pretty obvious at the end.
It was just tough to stay awake through this one, honestly. The brain was just shutting off, like, okay, I can't be lectured to anymore, man. Anyway, so the thing is, he's getting married and he's agonizing over when to tell his beloved, and there's some pretty trippy scenes, and before they get to the resolution of this story, they switch to the other story, which is like, really?
Which was about someone who's transgender and had an operation and fully transitioned, and they were very happy. Right.
So, I mean, well, it was cool that they didn't do psychological damage there.
Yeah.
He was smart enough not to go there.
The ironic thing is that Wood was actually a transvestite.
Right. So why would he... why wouldn't he just make this okay, it's just what you do?
I think maybe because it was the 50s and he had to, in some way, appeal to the thinking of the time.
You go broke or go home, I mean, you're making a film about transvestites.
True, yeah. You're pushing the envelope to begin with.
It's
why not?
Near and dear to you. Just go with it. And at least be honest.
Right.
But I guess the 50s were not about honesty.
Well, no, not at all. And so, that story turns out very nicely. She transitions and is very happy, lives happily ever after. And then back to the story of Glen, who was played by Ed Wood under an assumed name. Daniel something or other, I forget the last name.
Okay. And then more psychobabble and hilarity ensues.
And apparently, he tells his wife, or soon-to-be wife, she accepts it. And then he just gets better and stops cross-dressing.
Yeah. Yeah, it just wasn't that big a deal after all.
Yeah.
Who knew?
And Lugosi's monologues in this movie, on their own, more entertaining than all of Plan 9.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember a lot of Plan 9, except for...
I don't remember, except for Tor lifting various things and, Vampira, whatever she was called.
Like knocking down the entire set.
Yeah. I think I remember more of it from the movie Ed Wood than actual Plan 9. Honestly, if I didn't know we'd reviewed it, I'd wonder if I'd ever seen it.
I kind of remember, but then again, it's tough because we did Ed Wood and Plan 9 back to back.
Right, yeah. But the opening with Lugosi in Glen or Glenda kind of makes it feel like a horror film.
Exactly. It's another one of these movies where, like, what the fuck are we watching here? I mean, if you didn't know any better, if you didn't know Ed Wood's story, you would think he's saying that these are freaks of nature, that these are horrific beings. But it was just because he loved Bela Lugosi so damn much that he shoehorned him into this movie.
Yeah, you pretty much have to have seen the movie Ed Wood with Depp to get that.
Right.
And in that opening section, there's this scene where he just kind of pours some liquids into some beakers and it smokes. It's like the science experiment. Made absolutely no sense to me until you explained something shortly before we started recording.
Yeah, I'm under the belief that Bela Lugosi was supposed to have been God in this.
Yeah. Makes a bit more sense. At least that part makes a bit more sense, the beakers.
That God is the scientist, and that maybe he made some mistakes with his creations, and then of course they had that whole scene about the men coming to him and him, turning them into women, which was all very trippy shit, man.
Toward the end, after they explained the second story, you mean? Yeah, he has a man kneel down next to him, Lugosi, puts his hand on his head, the guy disappears, he puts his other hand out, a woman appears.
Right.
Who might have been the same guy in drag, I don't know.
Yeah, it totally was.
It was, okay.
That's when I figured out that he was God.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
That he was righting his mistakes.
I think Wood was actually legit trying to be artful with this movie, as opposed to Plan 9 where he was just trying to make a schlock horror film.
I think he was trying to fill time, honestly.
Well, he has that too.
He barely made it through an hour,
And he apparently didn't quite fill enough because the erotic themed vignettes in the film, I'm not sure what those were specifically. Nothing seemed particularly erotic, but they were reportedly added by producer George Weiss. He needed extra scenes to add to what he already thought was an overly short film. This was the only film that Wood directed but didn't produce.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was shot in 4 days and loosely based on the story of Christine Jorgensen, who made national headlines in the U.S. in '52 due to having a sex reassignment surgery. George Weiss, a producer of Hollywood low-budget films, commissioned a movie to exploit it. Originally, Weiss made Jorgensen an offer to appear in the film, but that was turned down. Wood convinced Weiss that his own transvestism made him the perfect candidate to direct, despite not having much of a resume. And then Wood just turned around and made a movie about transvestism with this kind of B story that talked about a transgender woman. So he just totally trolled the producer and made this other film about his thing. Which I appreciate, except then he just kind of shits on his thing.
Yeah. I mean, it is impressive that he did this in 4 days.
Mm-hmm. Also, I thought the suicide at the very beginning was Glen. I was very confused. I thought maybe it was all going to be told in hindsight.
Yeah. I at first was worried that they were going to do that.
There's a transvestite who kills himself early in the film. Part of God's monologue. His parts were just really insane, especially the dream sequence, which I think was just Glen's dream. Because there was a lot in there about, his fear of telling his fiancée and all that. But that dream sequence was even more trippy than Lugosi's monologues.
Oh, yeah. The whole marrying the devil thing, too. It's just wait, what?
Now, there's a line in here about how men's hats cause them to lose hair. I wore a fedora regularly from the late 90s up until, a few years ago when I found out that they were kind of looked down on. And, I mean, I was losing my hair before I started wearing the hat. It didn't go away any faster. There's a lot of interesting quote-unquote science in the film. I think the analogy to the animal kingdom was clever.
Yeah.
Where he points out that in the animal kingdom, the males are typically the more colorful to attract the females.
True.
And uses that as a justification for cross-dressing. Now, one scene kind of worried me. I would have liked to have seen them I wouldn't say worried, more amused me. I would like to have seen a more realistic version of it. He goes into a store to buy this nightgown, and he's got a lit cigarette, which threw me at first because it's the 50s and, I was a smoker around the time all the laws got really strict. So that threw me, for one thing, seeing him smoke in a store, but then he just throws away the cigarette. Indoors. He doesn't drop it and stomp on it.
I thought he was going to burn the nightie.
He just throws it to the side, like one would if one were outdoors and littering.
Yeah.
Why didn't the store just catch on fire? I kind of wanted to see that just as, a parody. I will say Wood was a decent actor. He wasn't great, but he did the job.
Well, he's acting his story.
Yeah. I mean, it hits close to home. It makes sense that he would have done well with it.
And what makes it so weird is he has this story. He has this personal story, but he just buries it in all this psychobabble rather than and narration, rather than just telling a fucking story.
Right.
It's almost the same problem that we've had, for all three of these. In fact, I think this trilogy was really more of the psychobabble trilogy.
Yeah.
Than Immoral Panic.
Mazes and Monsters was full of it, yeah. In many ways.
Homes.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, Reefer Madness, they tried to, explain away all the use of weed, yeah. There was one scene that I think was really, it had to be really salacious for the time. When he first tells the fiancée, she takes off her Angora sweater that he couldn't keep his hands off of and hands it to him. And she's standing there in just a bra, handing him this sweater. Not that big of a deal now, but in 1953, that had to be really salacious.
Yeah. Yeah, this had to have been considered something, not for kids.
I mean, honestly, in 2017, it was still kind of sexy, but, I can't imagine what they would have thought then. But the ending is really what threw me, because I honestly really enjoyed the movie, up until that ending, up until he was cured. Because, his wife understood him and suddenly he lost interest in cross-dressing.
He set free and was able to replace his cross-dressing with love?
Apparently he had mommy issues and the wife took over for that somehow and he didn't need to cross-dress anymore.
And what a shitload of stuff to put on one woman.
Yeah, that's it.
What is it she had to be? She had to be his mom, his wife, his, Like, what? I mean... That's one of those things where, the cameras cut away, and then when they cut back, you're like, oh, wait, where'd she go?
Yeah. I honestly had to wonder if the movie was for or against transvestism, which is weird when it was directed by a transvestite.
Well, right. He really buried his own story, so much so that you couldn't even really tell what he was trying to tell us.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is kind of the same thing he did with Plan 9, too.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I do remember about Plan 9 was just how, anti-war it was.
Right.
And considering that was 1959, was whoa!
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
On the sequels and remakes?
On the sequels and remakes, it was an hour-long movie. There isn't much for us to go with here.
Actually, Glen is executed in the sequel Death of a Transvestite from 1967.
Really?
After a struggle for the right to go to the electric chair dressed as Glenda. So at some point he goes back to cross-dressing, gets arrested. I guess it was illegal back then, maybe.
Yeah.
I know homosexuality was. I'm guessing cross-dressing was too. Actually, that was 2 years before Stonewall.
Deviance, I mean.
And so apparently gets arrested and fights to go to the electric chair as Glenda.
So what movie? What was the name of this?
Death of a Transvestite. I really need to look for that.
He doesn't have it on his writing credits.
I would like to see, how they did that remake parody of Reefer Madness a few years back, or about 10 years back. I would love to see that with this movie, with Eddie Izzard as Glen.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And just tell the story as it should have been told.
And, there's so much with, the whole drag world now,
Oh, yeah, RuPaul would have to have a cameo.
Of course. If not a solid role.
RuPaul could be Lugosi's part. I mean, if you're twisting it to take away the morality bullshit at the end, make arguably the most famous transvestite in the world, or drag queen in the world, God.
I say get a woman to cross-dress as a guy to do Lugosi's part.
Oh, yeah. There we go. On to Brains?
On to Brains.
Like I said, I really liked it. I think it's worth recommending for Lugosi's part in the dream sequence. In fact, those bought it a brain I'm going for.
Yeah, those are pretty much the only reasons to watch this, but I would recommend it. Three brains.
All right, and what have we learned?
The green dragon's a lot like riding the snake.
And once again, I learned that kinks can only be the result of trauma.
Of course.
All right, so until next time, when we'll be kicking off, I guess, a tribute two-parter again. This one for Erin Moran. It is Galaxy of Terror. It was already on the list, and she just happened to pass away when it was on the list. Until then, go to zombietakeout.com, check out the album art, the episode description, of course, the episode itself, which you're already listening to. Links to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and YouTube. Links to subscribe via RSS and iTunes. Please leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you enjoyed the show, spread the word. Give us a little word of mouth. Of course, we appreciate all of the listeners we have, but more would be better. You'll also find in the movie list every movie we've reviewed so far and every movie we're going to review up through Zombievers. Thanks again, Bodo.
Look forward to that one.
Mm-hmm. And
I have a macabre prediction, though.
Okay.
We have 2 tribute episodes coming up, right?
Mm-hmm. Jonathan Demme's the other one, by the way.
Yes. I don't see us getting... This would be 5 weeks without another celebrity death.
You're probably right. There were a few recently, one of which could give us an excuse to review Red State.
Oh my God, you're right.
But we'll talk about that off air.
Yeah, my prediction is it's going to be a trilogy at least.
Yeah. Maybe we could put Red State in there.
Maybe we'll find something better. No offense, Mr. Smith.
And of course, you'll also find the recommendations list. Like I said, I think it's worth it just for the insanity. Of course, you can email us, zombietakeout@gmail.com, or leave us a voicemail at 414-368-ZTO1, or for the alphanumerically challenged.
You can dress up as another gender and fuck yourself then, too.
Or just dress up if that's what you're into.
Yeah, really. No one gives a shit.
414-368-9861. Of course, always remember that you'll always be calling from the middle of Milwaukee. And until next time, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you are.
People. All going somewhere.
Leave us a voicemail at 414-368-9861. Or say that again.